Haley is going to go first.
No, I got this. Oh, gracious, gracious. Guys, you know my voice carries, right? Yes, it does. Doesn't it? Yes. Guys, as an arm of USCAN, the Catalyzing grants has allowed the working of some of the most innovative minds in this organization through a journey toward a better earth. And in that is a story. Is it a story? It is. And it's a wonderful story that will resonate with all of us. We're going to begin with Haley. I have to be able to, I didn't put my glasses on in order to be able to hear. But we will first we'll have Haley Campbell with Care About Climate. She is virtual. Haley, can you hear us? Of course we can do Huda. They're going to tell stories about their. Yeah. Let's see, Roman and Martin.
Sanford and Son.
Sanford and Son.
Thelma
yes.
and Louise.
Oh, truly Thelma and Louise, guys. But yes, you're supposed to.
Okay.
All right.
All right. That's all right. That's why we tag teaming. So let us talk about the purpose of the Catalyzing grants first, before we have some testimonials from those who have received the grants and can tell firsthand the benefits of the grants. And any of us in this room that have received these resources probably can, but it's wonderful, as Sarah has taught us, to hear these stories. The purpose of the Catalyzing grants, first and foremost, is to build trust and alignments, and thereby work towards critical mass for climate action and policy by enabling alignments between the cluster of members. Direct more funding to the grassroots. One of the things that most attract me about USCAN is the access to resources and the opportunity to collaborate and partner with folks. And so direct more funding to the grassroots, the climate movement, especially those frontline communities and those in movements who are traditionally underfunded. And a lot of us in this room know that our movements, we were in a session with one of the younger people who talked about the difficulty of receiving funding for BIPOC youth-led organizations. And so hopefully in here we will address some of those things. Another purpose of the member Catalyzing grants is to support efforts to build long-term grassroots power. The one thing about USCAN that is so beautiful is that it is not only a top-down strategy, but definitely a lift-up from the bottom. I live and work, well, I work in a community that is known by the elected officials in our community as the bottom. That is the expectation that they have of the community, that is their reference. But one of the things that we are training and teaching them to know is that if the bottom is not strong, if the bottom is not viable, nothing else is. And so for the USCAN to have this bottom-up power build is so amazing. And so from the ground up and in unity and solidarity, one of the things today talked about falling in love again. I texted that to my husband. Yeah, y'all will get that on the way home. For the USCAN network and for the whole climate movement as a whole. And so those are our purposes. Well, Gloria will now come, if Haley is not there, is come and introduce us to some of our members that have received the Catalyzing grants, and they will share what they've done. Would you welcome Gloria?
Now we're on track now, aren't we? We're on track now? Great, because what we would like to do is we'd like for you to hear the stories of some of those minds that applied for funding through USCAN, their story in the way they choose to tell it. And those stories, you will probably hear familiarity. You will see, you will hear or feel ahs. in that innovation, and because we're all on the same journey to a better earth. And our job, one step at a time, and I will tell you this because, again, I don't like to talk. I was told a long time ago that working together works. Now, today I'm told working together still works. And I got to think USCAN is the most wonderful organization where you are able to do that, to accomplish the main goal and mission. So without me talking anymore, Haley Campbell from Care About Climate is our first storyteller in her journey. Is Haley on now? Is she's not on yet? Okay. Huda Alkoff and Liz Lee with the Wisconsin Green Muslims will tell their story regarding the funding that they've received through USCAN.
All right, greetings everyone. Peace, salam. Huda Alkaf here, founder and director of Wisconsin Green Muslims. And I would like to have the slides up, the same slide deck. We are in number 14, I think. So I greet you first with the Islamic greeting, Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. And a little bit about Wisconsin Green Muslims. It's a grassroots environmental justice group that connects faith, environmental justice, sustainability, and healing through education and service. And we are in our 18th year in operation. And we've been a member of USCAN now for 9 years. So really happy to be part of the collaborative. I'm going to share 2 collaboratives that Wisconsin Green Muslims was part of recently. So the first one is the Young Adults BIPOC Faithful Climate Action Fellowship. And the second one is the Multi-Solving for Equitable Community Climate Solutions. So the first one here, this is the year 2 of the BIPOC Young Adults Faithful Climate Action Fellowship that ran from July 7 to August 18, 2022, over a span of 7 weeks. The partners here, we had partners with the Creation Justice Ministries, Daino, Green Faith, Interfaith Power and Light, DC, Virginia area, United Women in Faith, and Wisconsin Green Muslims. And the second collaborative that I would also mention is the Multi-Solving for Equitable Community Climate Solutions. It's a collaborative between Climate Generation, Climate Interactive, REAMP, and Wisconsin Green Muslims. So touch a little bit about the Multi-Solving for Equitable Community Climate Solutions. Primarily was the background of the question is how to multi-solve for equitable community climate solutions, connecting systems thinking and simulations with virtual education at a time of multi-crisis. The question was, how can we solve for multiple social challenges through equitable climate solutions? Multi-solving is a concept that provides an approach for finding systemic solutions that protect the climate while also improving health, equity, and well-being. We shared many stories. We learned together about what does that mean in our own situations and in our communities. And we looked at the time of overlapping crisis in a fragmented society, how multi-solving explorations and learnings can help us find equitable, community-centered climate solutions that solve multiple problems through interconnected interventions. And here it shows on the right, one of the workshops that we held. And there were many collaborations and workshops and learnings through this concept of multi-solving for equitable community climate solutions. So it's very interactive and very impressive learnings for all of us. The other collaborative that I want to mention here is the one that with the BIPOC Faithful Climate Action Fellowship on the left on the screen here. So this was, as I mentioned, young adults age 18 to 27, 26, 27 years old. And the fellowship had 15 young adults, Christians, Jews, and Muslims from California, Georgia, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, North Carolina, New York, Oregon, Virginia, and Wisconsin. And shout out to my peers in the room there. I hope they are there. Karen Bigelow, and then Liz, who's going to share with me. Robin, yeah, I think you're there. And anyone else from Daino or Green Faith, or United Women in Faith or Interfaith Power and Lights DMV region. So the fellows shared opening, middle, and closing reflections and were able to learn from the participating organizations and guest speakers about a wide range of skills-based workshops. Topics include faith engagement related to climate change, media and op-ed training, organizing training, artistic training, and spiritual grounding and renewal. And I would acknowledge Reverend Dallas, who also joined us at that training. So as part of their fellowship experience, fellows completed final projects that ranged from op-eds, presentations, scripture studies, to art projects. Some fellows made digital art, photography, children's book, and wrote articles, and many, many more stories to share and build bonds together. So if you go to just one click, you make one click on the slides. Whoever is clicking the slides, yeah. So we had each fellow had shared slides about their stories, their successes, and there's many more to tell. So Liz, please take it away from here. If you're there.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Elizabeth Chanhe Lee, or Liz Lee, with United Women in Faith. Yes, this was such a powerful collaborative. As Huda said, it was the second year. This is a space I wish I had when I was a young adult. Faith, climate justice, and my own culture and identity being affirmed in one location. I had to go to different spaces, where often I was a minority in one way or another. So this is the second year, as Huda was speaking about. And the core part of the fellowship was to offer practical skills, building through completing a final project. And the previous BIPOC Faithful Climate Action Fellowship was focused on writing op-eds, LTEs, getting them published. But we know that there are multiple ways for effective communication, and especially with young adult audiences, and especially recognizing some of our communities that we wanted to reach out to, LTEs, op-eds, who holds those powers and what gets published, right? Not often from our community context as well. So as Huda said, we had our leaders, our BIPOC leaders, think about projects in 4 categories. One was on faith engagement, making a presentation or delivering a speech or a sermon to a faith audience. We actually had 11 of our leaders, and it was powerful in terms of what they presented and prepared, whether it was art and Bible study from their Hokan community, or faith and climate change for an Asian American Christian youth context, or doing a presentation correlating between environmental health with a focus on inequality, another on henna and climate change. Talk about that, the significance in the Middle Eastern, South Asian, Southeast Asian cultures, awareness of chemical henna versus organic henna, and the threat to henna of the Laonia inerimus plant that is directly being impacted by climate change, and providing concrete solutions to reduce carbon footprint, to fight and advocate for climate change, and then grounding that and connecting to her Muslim theological context. And then she also created a Climate Justice Fellow sticker that you can actually purchase through our Fellows webpage. So that's Nuharayati Ali. So I will send that to you all if you want a climate justice flower sticker that's of henna, right? Another shared around climate crisis, Sukkot presentation. Around that, this presentation was given actually during one of the days during Sukkot, a goal to give people the opportunity to think about their responses to the climate crisis and what it means to align that response with Jewish values, connected with the festival of Sukkot that is 5 days after Yom Kippur. Again, context, community, their own audience. We had another speak about environmental policy as a tools against marginalized communities in Michigan. And he noted in his presentation the control of Black people through housing policy as a means of dominance of post-slavery reality, and that our current policy approach creates a hierarchy of who is valued in what Alan Freeman calls the victim and perpetrator perspectives on legal decision-making. And he challenged the listeners in his audience to say, what are we doing in terms of policy transformation? There was middle reflection, sharing of a hadith from the Quran. There was a session on saving your home, another on a reality for climate, a kid's guide to climate justice with art and creative engagement for children, and a training that started, and someone gave the logistics, 7 a.m. gathering, 8 a.m. activity, 10 a.m., et cetera, right, in terms of what that person did. So those are vibrant presentations. Another did a media and an op-ed on native gardens as apartment amenities. And then we had art, 4 art actions of, around halal, henna, grounding, and a poem as well. So some takeaways. It was a powerful time for an interfaith group of BIPOC young adults to come together, learning about each other's faith traditions and the theological groundings that media or others have at times been portrayed in opposition to one another. So it was interfaith solidarity and learning as well. It was integration of climate justice. And the final projects, as I hope you heard, celebrated their cultures that are not always present in climate or religious spaces. These are amazing BIPOC young adult faith leaders. Are you looking for art? Are you looking for presentations, content, speakers? Reach out to our young adult leaders. So I want to ask those organizations that Huda mentioned earlier, if you can stand, because this was a very collaborative program. So Robin, Interfaith Power and Light, Dainu, Interfaith Power, any of the Interfaith Power and Lights and others, you know, we did the work together. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, reach out to our young adult leaders because they are really powerful.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Huda and Liz. I hope you guys are entering the lens of what their journey is doing and where it's taking them. Now, we have Ms. Ernico, Commissioner, come on up, with Organized Uplifting Resources Strategies, or OURS, and the story continues. Yeah, give her a hand.
Hey, y'all. Hey. It gives me a great pleasure to stand before you today and talk about my organization. If they give me the slide, I can flow through it with y'all. So I created this organization actually while I was in school. It was at a time when my grandmother was sick, and if you know me, my grandmother was my everything. So I chose to stop working, and I spent my savings making sure that she was okay. And my grandmother taught me how to garden. I'm 35, and I've had a garden my entire life. We've always lived off the land, and what I tell people when I come to conferences is that we've coined this term sustainability, but sustainability has been survival, which Black people have been doing for over 400 years. we talk about mutual aid, but mutual aid is community which black folks have done when they didn't have a lot of resources. So you give to me and I give to you. And so I come from land that's been in my family for over 200 years, 8 generations. And for me, gardening is what I know. That's in every fiber of my being. And that is actually what I've had the privilege of going back to. So in working in this space, the climate space, I actually started at Wake Forest University doing faith-based nonprofit leadership. And in that, we had to have a project. And I wanted a project that meant something to me. So this birthed ours, Organized Uplifting Resources and Strategies for our blood, for our land, for our people. With this, I started doing things in my community, supporting youth, supporting kids, and I was funding it myself. I did not know how to start a nonprofit, did not know much of anything, but I was on my way because I had this great title, right? 2017, I started researching what was going on, started learning more about nonprofits, went to a couple of gatherings, saw people who had nonprofits, talked to them, learned from them, continued to do the research myself, and I continued to do the work for myself. I would have conversations, and you know how if you're up and coming, people tell you that, oh, I'm gonna help you, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And none of them did. And I'll just be honest with you, none of them did. Everybody talks a good game until it's time to get the game going, right? So for me, I came here to USCAN, and I don't know if you all remember Ishmael, but Ishmael and I talked on the phone. And Ishmael told me, I was like, well, Ishmael, I don't know nothing about that, but I'll come. You know, he was like, oh, well, you got your nonprofit? I was like, well, yeah, I got a nonprofit, but it ain't paid for. So he was like, well, we'll waive the fees and you can come in. And so I started with the first one that was virtual. And they sent me a check for $350 a stipend. I said, well, Lord, what I gonna do? So I actually took that $350. I filed for my 501c3. I also took it and got somebody to build my website, and I did my articles of incorporation and everything. So that first stipend actually built my organization. It made me legal. From there, I kept doing the work, continued to do what I needed to do in my community. I worked from donations. I continued to fund it, continued to do the work. And then I got my first grant, the $20,000 Catalyzing grant. With that Catalyzing grant, I was able to do virtual and in-person gardening classes, and my program was called the GET program, Gardeners in Training. I also was able to send one child to the South Carolina Governor's School of Agriculture on a full scholarship. I partnered with youth organizations throughout the area where I'm from, McCormick, Greenwood, Abbeville, Lawrence, Edgefield, Newberry, and Saluda. Several different programs. I partnered with them. I partnered with a fellow gardener in North Carolina. Her name is Brandy Hamilton. Brandy Hamilton has a organization, and she's what you call the goodness grower. So she did some of my courses online, and outside of that, through last year when we had it in Charlotte, I don't know if y'all remember Chef Jillian that was out with us at JCSU. But she and I have become friends, and we're actually doing a farm-to-table collaborative. And outside of that, last year I wrote a grant with Miss Jerry to do the $50,000 for 2 years, which I received. And that was 2022. 2023, we are actually putting roots down in my community to build a community garden to feed 3 counties. So through the Catalyzing grant, I have been able to do a lot, and I hate that, Kevin, I hate Kevin isn't in the room because Kevin talked about on yesterday the crabs in a barrel mentality. Through the Catalyzing grant, I have been able to get out of the barrel and give the barrel back to them so they can carry their own loads. All right. Thank y'all.
Let's give it up again for Mr. Nico. Yes. It only takes a seed to be planted. And when it's watered, what happens? It's what you've heard so far in that journey. Now, I don't know, we got Mr. Alex coming forward. Where's Alex? He's there. Oh, there you are, Alex. No, I'm sorry, Alex, I'm sorry. Yes. You do forgive me, right?
Yeah, I'm just happy.
I know you do. I know you. Wow, that is. But no, we're going to have Care About Climate to come next, and they are virtually as well.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for having us. So my name is Elujilo Kwemi, and I'm the co-executive director of Care About Climate. I'm from Nigeria. So good to be here with everyone. And yeah, listening to the amazing intervention just shared for now. But shortly, I'll be talking about Care About Climate. Basically, we are a US-based international organization saddled with the responsibility of empowering young people to be the best advocates in the climate space that they can be. The initiative started from the understanding that young people attend several international engagements, such as the UNFCCC COP, the meetings of the subsidiary bodies and all that. But then don't have the necessary knowledge, not in its entirety, to really hold their leaders accountable to the promises and then to the pledges made. But then we all know that young people the future belongs to young people, and young people can be the best advocate that they can be when equipped with the knowledge necessary to actually implement change and drive the actions that they can do. So basically what the mission of the organization is all about is to empower young people, to equip young people with the requisite skills and competence needed to be their best advocates in the climate decision-making spaces like COP, the Conference of Parties, like I mentioned earlier, and also to build that momentum and then build that strong social network at the community level to implement change and drive local actions. And to achieve this mission, we leverage on these three actions highlighted here. Access, which is basically to create that leverage, that platform for young people to engage with their political leaders, with their country representatives at international platforms like COP, where it's going to be challenging for young people to engage with their political leaders at the national level. But one thing that the Conference of Parties provides is that you can bump into your political leaders while walking through the corridor of the COP building. So we ensure to send delegations of young people to these important convenings to make their voices heard and also to communicate the local realities and perspectives of the people that they serve at the local community. The second thing we do, like I mentioned, is education, which of course speaks to understanding of climate change, understanding of environmental issues, understanding of biodiversity issues and its cross-cutting nature. And then, of course, we do that from the local to the international levels as well. And then also addressing equity in the climate spaces. Next, please. So at COP, we also realized that only 5% of all attendees are members of Yongo, and Yongo represents the youth of the UN. But then what we do as an organization, and of course, that's the picture of Care About Climate members hosting side events at COP27 that I held last year. So what we do in creating this access is to bridge the gap between youth leaders and then the access to COP. And like I mentioned, what we do is to ensure that the voices of young people are actually represented in these spaces. And how do we achieve this? We ensure that for every of these engagements, we send a delegation of young people spread across the geopolitical zones to represent their communities, the young people in their communities, to indeed hold the leaders accountable and be like, yes, you promised us this. Yes, you've made these pledges, but we are yet to see it at the local level. What are the framework that you have put in place to make this happen? And last year at COP27, we were able to send 11 delegates spread across several countries across the globe to attend COP with 10 around 10 and 11 speaking opportunities. We also hosted 3 side events and also hosted COP from home, which reached over 1,000 audience in terms of impressions. And what we did with the COP from home is to ensure that people who probably by reason of funding, by reason of visa issues were not able to make it to COP, but we don't want them out of the conversation entirely. So everything that was happening at COP, we'll feed back in it to them live even while at COP in Egypt. So so the next step for this is to support the global stock taking that we know is coming up shortly. This is what we are working towards next, and also the NDC negotiation at COP28. Next, please. So like I mentioned, the ways we achieve our missions, for one is access, and this right is education. And then we've realized that over 90% of young people that attend COP, which they had access to COP training and resources prior to attending this event. And our role in this space is to create the platform that empowers these young people with the knowledge and foster relationship to ensure that everyone is actually confident in their ability to maximize the opportunities that COP presents. And over the years, we've been able to support 88 participants from 33 countries. Last year, we held our first COP training program that engaged 88 participants from 30 countries across the globe, and 50% of these participants were actually from the Global South. And 95% from our survey said they would be happy to take this course again. Next slide, please. So this is one of the other programs that we do, which is about the NDCs, which is what the funding that we received has actually contributed to the success of this program. And what we did with the NDC equity program is we realized that the majority of the NDCs actually do not include young people in their development and then in their implementation as well. So our role is to build the capacity of these young people by empowering them to first understand what their countries have pledged and how they can fit into this and how they can also mobilize for commitment from their political leaders. So we empower them to implement an intergenerational justice and gender justice analysis of the NDCs. And so far, I've been able to analyze 48 NDCs from every UN region. And we've engaged over 150 young people trained to understand their NDCs and also to analyze it and also to use this to inform and make recommendations to their political leaders on how they can ensure that the nationally determined contributions, which is the vehicle by which countries communicate their commitment to climate adaptation and addressing these issues. And we have also hosted 5 NDC equity events at COP and then the UN Climate Week. So the next steps for this is to work with policymakers at the UNFCCC to inform the global stock taking that will be happening shortly again by our database. Next, please. Yes, I think that's pretty much everything. But then this work that we do will not have been possible without support from organizations and without funding support from organizations and movements like the USCAN, and which is why we are very, very grateful for the support that we receive from these agencies to do what we do and also to empower young people to be the change that we know that they can be in their communities and beyond. Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Guys have heard a common thread from the first three stories, but I'm hearing empowerment. And when we empower individuals, then things start to happen. And that comes through all the efforts of everyone that we've heard so far. Alex, it is your turn this time. And Alex is with Southeast Climate and Energy, or SAN.
Can y'all hear me? Yeah? All right, all right. Are y'all tired? Y'all sleepy? No. Do I make you stand up right now? No? Yeah, stand up. Everybody, get up for a minute. Come on. How much time do I have? We have Michael, right? Hanson? Okay. All right. Oh, all right, let's do some jumping jacks. Ready? No, just kidding, just kidding. Yeah? All right, take a seat, take a seat. Okay, Dallas, Reverend Dallas Conyers, who's part of my team and part of the USCAN team and part of a bunch of teams, is going to help me a little bit here, and also Natalie Lucas as well when I talk about asset mapping. But before I get into these three examples or these three stories, I want to go back in time a little bit. I joined USCAN as a consultant in 2016. In May of 2016, and 2 weeks into it, brand new to the climate movement, we had an annual meeting in Miami. And I was blown away by this network and have been part of USCAN ever since. And I was, the first 2 years that we had these grants, the membership alignment grants, I participated. And I've watched this program evolve, and I have to say that USCAN does a lot of things really well, but this is one of my favorites, if not my favorite. And I really mean that because what you're doing here is you're seeding projects. They don't all have to work, huh? Okay, but you're seeding projects, ideas, initiatives, and you're actually telling members that they can collaborate together, but you're not saying which ones need to collaborate with which ones. All right? The design of this initiative is really good, and I say this because we were in a meeting yesterday and we're talking about getting some funding from the government, but then they're going to have all these restrictions, and I saw Carrie say, you know, well, don't mess with our design, all right? So I really like that. So I'm very happy to have been part of that cohort 3 times and also have been part of some really cool initiatives, some that are not even going to be talked about here. But this is one that actually Dallas was mainly a part of. And she basically came to me, and I can't say enough good things about Dallas. She came to me and said, Alex, can we participate in this thing? And I'm like, and I took a quick look and I'm like, absolutely. Okay, so, well, I guess I'm supposed to say our mission, right, for SEN. To confront the climate crisis by creating strategic alignment, growing capacity, and building power among our member organizations. SEN is a network of 80 organizations in the Southeast. We used to be a program of USCAN. So I came in as a consultant then with a really awesome, badass steering committee who became our board, became our own independent network a few years ago, 5 years ago. Anyways, Black Folks Healing. How much time do I have, Carrie?
I got 7 minutes.
All right, good. All right, collaboratives, ours, Black Women Rising, Soul Nation, the People's Justice Council, and BCAN. So basically, this initiative, the purpose was to address multi-generational oppression and trauma by hosting workshops that centered healing for Black climate justice leaders. Very, very important. The results, 4 2-hour virtual workshops. So we provided a safe space to speak, prepared self-care gifts for participants, and over 80 Black climate activists participated from across the country. More space needs to be given to healing because it is sorely, and I'm not just for Black folk, for a lot of folk, all right? But Dallas, can you speak very briefly on this project?
Yes, and the first thing I need to say is to give faces. Laura may not be in the room right now. She's actually downstairs doing more Black folk healing. But Laura Kegawa James held us together, made sure these workshops went on, delivered so much of the love that is needed to draw people into spaces like this. And if you can ever thank Laura just for being who she is, you really should, because she's one of those people. And then, yeah. And then to give a name and a person, Black Women Rising is our very own Archbishop, actually presiding prelate, Marcia Dinkins. Yes. And she gave us her time to lead all 4 of those sessions. So if you want to have an understanding of what was going on in those sessions, just understand that it was, we call her Archbishop, but she actually got elevated a bit more to presiding prelate since then, who was doing that work. And so we had a great time, and Laura put in a fantastic amount of time and effort making sure we got our gift and our care packages, because as was said yesterday, so many of us don't feel cared for. And it may seem like a small thing to receive a box of beautiful, thoughtful items,
please turn off your
sourced
cell
from
phone.
Black-owned and ran businesses, but it's actually bigger than what it sounds. And I really do want to thank Alex for just really reading the proposal and saying, yeah, of course. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dallas. Next slide, please. All right, I'm starting to run out of time here. Strategic cross-climate advocacy for legislative action. Another one of Dallas's ideas, actually. Imani Group participated, Care by Climate, both were in the room. NRDC, Hours, Power Shift Network, Center for American Progress, and Climate Advocacy Lab. So a pretty big collaborative group. Kind of a complicated project, but I'm kind of cool with that. It was really interesting. So the purpose aims to understand other social movements and industries that have had consistent wins with the U.S. Congress, and what we can take from that, basically, and what we can learn and apply to our own purposes. The results, well, I just added this bullet point, that we actually had a lot of conversation internally. Actually, it's not there, but a lot of conversation internally, and very rich conversations, and also conversations that sometimes were very frustrating. Some people, especially those in DC, were pretty pessimistic as to what we're trying to do. And there were other perspectives, and it was just a very interesting process. And then we landed on interviewing some folks, including Steve Murchie of Environmental Defense Fund, Lindsay Crowder of Exposure Labs, who used to be with, I think, the People's Climate March movement. Really good interview, that one. And there's a few others that we interviewed as well. And we're developing a white paper, and that's going to be coming out soon, and hopefully to be shared within our networks, CEN and USCAN. You want to add anything, Dallas?
Yeah, if y'all don't mind. Okay, so just want to highlight our other ones. Our other ones were William Barber III, Tara Fernandez, and Stacy Gagosian. And to do a quick story, Stacy came from Truth Initiative. And we literally got this interview because I was in DC working out the visa situation for COP27, and I was walking back to the library, the museum. Anyway, I'm walking out this building, and I see Truth Initiative, and Scala was on my mind, of course, and I'm like, they are outside of the climate industry. We need somebody from them because they turned the tobacco industry on its head. How did they do that legislatively so successfully and have held their impact and power for so long? And so many people tell us that nothing works, you can't reach these kind of people. All I had to do was walk into the building, walk up to the front desk, because it was one of those multi-office buildings, and I said, hey, so my name is Dallas Kyers, and I want to talk to somebody from Truth Initiative. And they were like, what? And it was a language barrier. And they call up, and Truth Initiative is like, we don't know Reverend Dallas Kyers. I'm like, yeah, I'm Reverend Dallas Kyers, meaning safe. And I want to talk to you about a project we're doing. Just send somebody down and just give me a listen. Give me 5 seconds, and if you don't like it, you can go back up. No harm, no foul. And they sent somebody down, and we started conversations. And yes, I had to chase them a little bit, but we got 2 interviews with them, and we learned so much more. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dallas. Next slide, please. One more quick one. Asset mapping with Care by Climate. Natalie, when she was there, PJC, People's Justice Council Sustaining Way. To leverage grassroots power through asset identification and resource sharing, we wanted to tie this to learning about our members, what capacities they had to offer and what capacities they needed, and also to kind of set up the table for some power mapping in the future. Okay, so Natalie, we're out of time here. Can you speak to it a little bit because you own this project?
Yeah, just quickly, and it's in all your orientation, and I think we're going to be building it out more with the Center on People and Climate Impacts as they presented yesterday around adaptation and resilience and thinking about that, but really just understanding where the organizations stand throughout the United States and who is participating and giving you all that resource so that you can find what you're looking for and connect with one another.
Thank you, Natalie. And we did trainings across the networks, and one real big takeaway is that we got to know our members a heck of a lot better. And within SEN, we're going to hire a membership coordinator who's going to do just that, to really get to know our members, because there's so much that you all do that we do that very few know about. So leveraging that power and figuring out ways that we can work together and learn from each other, that's what it's all about. Southern Communities, we're going to use another one, but we don't have time. There's other things, but I love this project. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much. Beautiful. All right.
Okay, where's Winston? There you are, Winston. You want to come up? Yeah. Let's give Winston a hand coming up there. Winston. Oh, did you guys see him dancing? Oh, wow.
You ain't seen nothing yet. Hello. I better speak up quickly before everybody leaves. So, they say, or some people say, my father said, out of evil comes forth good. And the evil I'm talking about was the COVID-19 pandemic. And the good I will talk about is one of the responses we had. The pandemic, it bears some of the contradictions in our system. And what I'm talking about is that in any state, in the southern states, you have consumers who needed food because the supply chain had broken, and you had farmers around the corner who were plowing on the food. So the supply chain doesn't work. So we said, what if we shorten the supply chain for food? What if your supply chain, a family's supply chain, is their backyard to their kitchen to their table? So what we did, we applied for one of these grants for USCAN to develop backyard and community gardens in communities that were food insecure due to the broken supply chain. And the supply chain is a ridiculous thing. I was just looking at this little jar of honey that they have out there. You look at the label, you see the path that this honey takes. Don't tell you where it was produced, tells you where it was packaged, manufactured. It's all over the place. It's all over the place. And on the same table back there, I saw a jar of preserves. I don't know who it belongs to. It has a label, say, I think it was cherry or something, with a number on it, with a local number on it. It means it came from somewhere here in... What's that?
It came from Joshua Trostler.
See? So the examples exist to shorten the food supply chain so that people in our communities are not vulnerable to COVID or whatever, or to the supply chain itself. And food is just one example. Most things we consume, we use, has a supply chain that boggles the imagination. So what we did, agricultural missions, I talked to Chief Parr over there and talked to Reverend Woodbury, some farmers in Mississippi and in Georgia. And we got together and said, we can do something about this by organizing backyard gardens, community gardens within our local communities, involving our local people. Not only they are controlling their own supply chain, food supply chain. So for 2 years we did this, and I will let them tell you their story so we can get it done in this 10 minutes that we have. So in South Carolina, we had 3 partners, Alpha and Whitney M. Slater and the PD Indian tribe. And I asked Chief to come up, and I asked Reverend Woodbury and or Loretta to come and tell exactly what they did and what they achieved. What's that? Or what they did and what they achieved locally in their communities. Yeah, come on. Age before beauty.
Okay. All right, hi guys. So the wonderful thing about this grant, I heard it say before that it was like a seed grant. And so we got funded during the pandemic. And so working with several organizations, the Whitney M. Slater Foundation, the PD Indian Tribe, one of the things that we did was we were giving out food. And giving out food like the rest of America from parking lots and churches, you know, we said, you know, there really is no such thing as a food desert. That's a false narrative. It only exists because we're waiting for some corporation to come and build us a place where we could get fresh produce. But if we bring it into our communities, if we teach people how to grow food, then we could deal with food insecurity. We could do away with food deserts. We can deal with the impacts of climate change, and we could do that through a just transition. So we started off growing food in 5-gallon buckets, canvas grow bags, to show people that it could be done. Then we got greenhouses, and we had them, Loretta had them in Darlington, we had them in Florence, and then down in the Britons Neck community in Marion County where we're working, we had 4 greenhouses set up as well. Then we decided with the second year funding, let's grow stuff indoors. So we got a small hydroponic tank that starts seeding kale, spinach, things like that, putting them in grow bags indoors in a booth 4 by 6 feet with 2 $25 grow lamps from Amazon. And my wife said, let's grow flowers too. And we grew vegetables, and we grew 240 tulips in that small space. And so moving on from there, last year, working with New Alpha Community Development Corporation, National Wildlife Federation, South Carolina Wildlife Federation, Dogwood Alliance, South Carolina State University, a host of other folks, we were able to purchase 7.5 acres of land, wetlands, and we, at the end of this month, will be cutting a ribbon on the Environmental Justice Training and Sustainability Center, a 2,400 square foot facility with a greenhouse, with 34 fruit trees, berries, hydroponic tanks that are connected to a drip water system, irrigation system. So even in the midst of a drought, these 8 hydro panels at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. every day water that garden, making water out of the air and solar powered. And so the things that we learn with those seed dollars from USCAN, we will now be training people to do the same thing in communities, and we invite each and every one of you to do the same, and hopefully this way we'll teach people to feed themselves throughout the South and throughout the United States. Thanks to USCAN.
Okay. Chief, you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. Lord, 2 minutes. Just basically what Reverend Leo said. We've been working with him, and we have 15 acres of land in an area called Marlboro County, and we also started two greenhouses, about a 50 by 75 foot garden, and we're doing the Native American way, which we use fish heads, fish, and organic food fertilizer. And we've been able to grow a decent garden, feed about 25 heads of families. So we're moving too. Also, we've been blessed with USCAN to help us. We're just now putting up a 50 by 60 foot building that is almost completed inside and out, and it's paid for, and it's a blessing that God gave us, and we appreciate it. And through the help of USCAN, Reverend Leo Woodbury and Winston here, we've moved. The PD Indian people is not here just for our people. We're here for all people, not just black, white, or green, or we want to help everyone in our community. We have a local farmer that gives us anywhere from 40,000 pounds of sweet potatoes, iced potatoes, watermelons, and we give it out to our communities. We gave out almost over 800,000 pounds of food in 2 years. This past 2 weeks ago, we gave out 48,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. Wow. God is moving. Yes. Through the help of USCAN, we're moving. Never have I thought that I would be here in New Orleans to celebrate a glorious celebration with each and every one of y'all. Thank you.
I'll just end up by saying, through this granting process, USCAN is building justice and funding justice. Thank you.
Let's give all of our storytellers another round. Fantastic. Now, as I take my seat, there is an organization, the name escapes me. It has a U in it, an S. I think it ends with an N. But in all sincerity, USCAN invests in its members for them to realize the potential of the movement and it going to its fruition. It's a journey, but through USCAN, it's possible through the stories that we've heard. And I cannot leave this podium without asking Carrie Clayton to come up here. Guys, she helped me find my niche with USCAN. She indulges me because you know I don't like to talk, but she represents the fullness of this organization to me. And that does not take away from anyone else, because USCAN is a fantastic, it's just fantastic network. But Carrie and her leadership in moving the Catalyzing Grants team forward makes it possible to hear the stories that we've heard today. And I don't know, but outside of getting a bucket and crying to tears, guys, let's stand. Let's stand for her, because she deserves every bit of it in her work here. Come on, don't you cry on me here, because I'm going to cry too.
Oh, jeez.
Okay? Don't do it to me. But you know me like
Well, I'm just going to say, and I'm going to make this for the record, I do not lead this program. I co-lead this program with the members, right? This is why it's so fantastic. I just get the honor for the last, 7 years to be the staff member that gets to co-lead it. So it is a beautiful program. Thank you all. And then we're on break until 4 o'clock.